time negotiating my divorce before I ever got married. We carry the world in our tummies and on our backs, and we're smart.
Literally.
We will catch up.
We will catch up.
Recently, in 1988, Congress passed the law that said women don't need a man to own a business.
About to grace us, whether extraordinary, 10x skill. 10x badass. Yeah, I'm after what I want.
Hello and welcome to the Elena Cardone Show. Today I'm very excited to introduce Michelle O'Neill. You are one of and just received an award for one of the best divorce lawyers in America. You reside in Texas, so I know you do a lot of high-powered billionaire divorces in Texas. Unfortunately, it's an uncomfortable subject. I just celebrated our 20-year wedding renewal vows. So
Yeah, don't get you a divorce.
We're not allowed to use the D word. That's one of the successful actions that we have in our marriage is we that's the D word that you just do not mention. And that's been successful. But I think you're so very fascinating because I've spoken to you and you believe so much in women empowerment and women's rights, and you tell me these statistics. For instance, women couldn't even get a loan until 1974. That's right. It had to be in their husband's name. So just talking to you, I found it to be so fascinating, and I wanted to bring you here today because there's certain statistics in the world. 80% of men die married. 80% of women die alone.
That's right.
Oftentimes their financial circumstances are cut drastically in half. And for women over 50, the chances of them going into poverty are even higher. And 43% of women have career breaks, whether it's they're either going to start a family and have kids, or they become divorced, or they become widowed. So I think it's so important to start bringing money and finances and how can women protect themselves and investments, or how do they pick themselves up, or just start having these conversations where women can protect themselves and understand how to protect themselves.
Yeah, the conversations are so important because women have not been educated financially. And historically, women have relied on men for the control of the money. And what we're finding is that, the average marriage length is 8 years. I mean, I've been married 18 years. You've been married 20 years. And I agree with you. In my marriage, we don't say the D word. I believe that if you say the D word, you better mean it.
Right.
So we don't utter the D word. But
do you have a prenup?
I do.
Okay,
I do.
Because you're a divorce lawyer.
I do. I drafted my own prenup. But
is he as financially successful as you?
At the time we got married, he was not.
And is he now?
Now we've kind of just jumbled it together where the prenup wouldn't really apply if we got divorced, but we're not getting divorced.
Well, that's true too. But why wouldn't it apply?
When I drafted it, I built in some expiration clauses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's nice.
But I think that for women, historically, because it's only been 50 years that women could have a bank account, that women could have a credit card.
This is in my lifetime.
Mine too. And even more recently, it was 1988 that women could own a business without needing a male co-signer. Now, understand what that means. That might be her daddy, that might be her husband, or for some women, they might have to go to their minor son and get their minor son to sign so that they could own a business.
Pre-1988.
Yes.
Devastating.
Finally, in 1988, Congress passed the law that said women don't need a man to own a business. Okay, so this is recent. I mean, I know we've got young women out there that are like 1988. Man, that's a lot.
They don't even remember.
They're like,
Scary.
if it isn't 2000, I get in a year, but whatever. Oh. But I mean, this is recent. I mean, you're a business owner. I'm a business owner, but there are so many women that aren't in that position, right?
Yeah.
There are so many women for whom the man is the plan. But if we're sitting here saying that the average marriage lasts 8 years, and if we combine that knowledge with the fact that 50% of first marriages end in divorce, 60% of second marriages end in divorce, 75% of third marriages end in divorce, right? Like, we've got a whole lot of women out there who are thinking the man's going to be the plan and they're going to end up divorced.
Now, what do we say? You know, because I want to restore the value of the family to society. So, you know, it's terrifying because when you hear that, it almost makes you want to force women to go into the workforce to protect themselves. And it sounds counterintuitive because I can see both sides of the story.
Right.
I can see the man going, I worked all this for all of this, and then she wants half. And then the woman that comes in and says, look, I came in to build a family with you. You were supposed to provide for us.
Yeah.
I wasn't working. I took care of the house and the home and the kids and the this and the that. And now he wants the divorce and wants to leave her high and dry. And she's like, and he's like, but you didn't build anything.
Right.
And she's only like, but the family.
Yeah.
So she wasn't actually in there doing it. So what is her claim to that?
Well, you know, the law actually, in all the states, the law actually protects the woman that does stay at home to a certain extent, provided that it was created during the marriage and built during the marriage. Now, if he created something before the marriage and then, you know, builds it, if he created it before the marriage and then even builds it during the marriage, it may not be community property or it may not be hers. And she may find herself in a problem. And that's really, really a sad situation.
Because then she feels trapped. Because if there's been a career break and she's left
and she may find herself in a situation where it's his property and not theirs, not joint. And so she could be left in a very bad situation in a divorce. Or if there's a prenup that might say that she gets nothing if she gets divorced. So there's a lot of things that could happen that could create, you know, and it's not just women. I mean, that does happen to men too. But, you know, what my advice to so many women is that, you know, marriage is both the emotional part, the falling in love, and the being in love and the raising the family, yes, but marriage is a business too. Mm-hmm. And as women, I think we have to learn to take care of ourselves from the business end of the marriage. Like, we have to disclose before we get married. We have to stay on top of the finances. You can't just, you know, be at home taking care of the kiddos and let the man take care of the money. You've got to know what your finances are. You've got to be involved in those conversations.
What if the man doesn't want to have those conversations with his wife?
You've got to have some of those conversations, and you've got to make sure that at a minimum, you've got job skills and you're upskilling yourself so that if the worst case scenario happened, it's kind of like insurance. You have life insurance, you have health insurance, you have car insurance. Why do you have those things? You have those things in case the worst case scenario happens, right? So women have to have kind of those insurance policies for themselves. And so having job skills, having something to fall back on, having, you know, maybe if they're going to be a stay-at-home mom, maybe they have some agreement to still keep up an IRA for themselves, still keep up a savings account for themselves.
Cardone Capital and Invest.
Have some investments that the marriage is making to that for her and her name only, so that she has that insurance policy, that is something that she gets to fall back on. You know, have some job skills, have a career of some sort that she could fall back on if worst case scenario happens, because we can wish and hope that it doesn't happen, but I'm here saying that it does.
It does. Are you pro prenup and have the conversations up front that are uncomfortable before you get married? So there's no expectations are known, or however you want to call that out.
Absolutely. Disclose before you disrobe.
Yes.
Disclose before you disrobe. because
So you're saying
Lay it
everyone
all-
should have a prenup.
yeah, lay it all out up front.
Did Grant make a mistake and not make? He wanted me to sign one, and he probably regrets it. I don't know, but did he make a mistake in not having me sign a prenup?
I don't know. I mean, I would need to know a lot more about your personal business, and that's that's not for me. I mean, but y'all are never going to get divorced.
No.
I'm not going to ever let y'all get divorced. 'Cause y'all are too good together. So.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I mean, but
That's why I wouldn't sign one. I was like, I'm not in this for you to have it out. Like, I'm going to quit my career. I'm going to have children. I'm going to like I'm in this. Like, I'm not going to go in this and then you leave me and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do now?
and you're the fortunate one. The statistics are just against that. For so many women, that's just not the choice that they have. They may decide, I mean, whether it's, the husband being unfaithful or maybe it's an abusive marriage or...
If it's an abusive marriage, chances are they're not going to want their partner to get skilled up because that's part of the control.
That it is, whether it's a control or abuse or whether it's emotional abuse or goodness, physical abuse. But there are so many issues that could cause there to be a divorce. The infidelity. I just read an article that's in Oprah right now about how menopause is affecting divorce rates. So women when they get to be 50 and how that is affecting the marriage. And we're just now kind of beginning to understand how menopause is affecting women, much less the marriage.
Right.
But women find themselves in marriages where they are going to get divorced and it's not necessarily their choice. And so, having those conversations up front, a premarital agreement, all it means is to predetermine what happens. That's it.
Obviously not every case, because every case is different. But now let's say we got the couple to, okay, now we're going to have the prenup talk. What do I, as a woman, need to know from here?
Yeah, you need to make sure that you have a full understanding of what the assets are going into the marriage, what the debts are. Because if you're marrying a man that has a bunch of debt, you need to know that,
Because
right?
that's now your responsibility
And what
too.
and what the disparity is between what you have and what he has. Is there a great disparity, or have you been a career woman and is it more equal? And then what are y'all going to do with what you gather together during the marriage? Are you going to keep everything separate, like my pile and his pile, or are you going to have some things that we create together? And then what happens when we have kiddos? I see this especially for situations where the man is the primary breadwinner and the mom's going to be a stay-at-home mom and comes into the marriage with very little assets and there's a great disparity. So a lot of times we'll negotiate into that premarital agreement. Maybe the mom, if there is a divorce and there's certain criteria, there are children, there's this, there's that, there's some benchmarks, right? Mom maybe the husband buys the wife a house and a car, and there's maybe some levels, like a house of at least a certain level or a certain neighborhood, and a car of a certain type, and builds in those benchmarks and builds in some income levels, because the husband isn't going to want her to go live in a certain type of neighborhood or put the kids in a certain type of public school. So that's those conversations that you can have as to the expectations that both parties have for the family unit, even if you get divorced, because just because you get divorced, you're still a family unit.
Yeah.
You may not be husband and wife anymore, but you're co-parents.
Right.
So you're still a family unit, and you may be adding to the family unit a new wife, a new husband. Like, we may be adding some pieces to the family unit, but you're still a family unit. And so you can have those conversations up front at the beginning of the marriage to predetermine what we want this to look like if we have to pull the ripcord and invoke some of this insurance policy type thing.
Wow. That's so much to consider, huh?
It really is. I mean, it really is. And I think as women, we tend to enter marriage only looking at the facet of the marriage that is the emotional, lovey-dovey. And we think that it is so morbid to think about the prenup as if it's the divorce. Like, and I was there, like, when I got married so long ago. I mean, it seemed dirty to think of it as I'm negotiating my divorce before I ever got married. But
that's what I could not get my head around.
And that's understandable, 100%. But you can't look at it that way, because it's really just a disclosure and a family planning, you know. And it's the same thing. I mean, when you think about that you have life insurance, you're thinking about your children when you die.
You know, we have life insurance.
Well,
we have own capital insurance.
Well, you may not need life insurance, but a lot of people do. Yeah. And the reason they have life insurance is to make sure that their income is replaced for their children. You know, if something happened to them and they passed away, you know, before their children were fully grown. And so, you know, that's the reason you have life insurance, and a premarital agreement is really no different.
So what is your advice to women right now? What are some first steps they can do to start getting on the path to knowing what they don't even know to know?
I think, number one, communication is key. And if communication is a problem in the marriage, like, you've got a problem in the marriage. So communication is key. And that's key with, I mean, I don't care what the relationship is, using your words and learning to communicate in a way that decreases emotion, right? Like, when you communicate in an emotional manner, like it takes away from your message. So learning to communicate in a way that's effective. I think, you know, educating yourself. One of the things that we talked about even yesterday was financial education. Women lack financial education.
Where do they go to get that?
Well, certainly Cardone University is a place they can go to get that education, but there's also tons of places. I mean, you can get financial education on YouTube. You know, I mean, I'm probably showing my age by saying this, but Zig Ziglar used to call it Automobile University, you know, when you could put the cassette tape in the car.
Yeah.
But there are so many free sources of education about finances.
Yeah.
You know, so learning about finances is so key. Save your statements. When you get a bank statement in the mail, snapshot a copy of it. Create a Dropbox account, like, put it over in.
And why do they do that?
So that then you have knowledge, because what happens whenever, you know, if the husband is kind of in charge of the finances and he takes those statements and goes and deals with them, then you don't have the access to the information anymore. So just creating that bank of information, creating the knowledge that you have to understand what you're reading. I mean, I had a lady that I represented one time, an elderly lady whose husband ran off on her. And I sat with her and a financial planner. Thankfully, they had plenty of assets that she was going to be fine, but she had never written a check before. And I got a financial planner that I trusted, that I knew wouldn't take advantage of her. And we sat in my conference room one day and we got a book of checks, and we had to teach her how to write out a check. Now, nowadays we have plastic.
Right.
But that wasn't that long ago. But she did
I
not.
had to teach myself how to deposit a check online. But anyway, continue.
But it was just that kind of financial knowledge. She had never had to write a check before, you know.
Yeah.
So education, I think, is just so key. You know, gathering knowledge, not being in the dark about your financial situation is key, and making sure that you have skills to fall back on that, you know, that give you, you know, some comfort that if things fall apart, you know what you're going to do.
And by the way, I want to do a quick little shameless plug if you approve. But I heard you talk in the beginning about she needs to have skills. If a woman finds herself in a situation where she needs quick skills fast, and you don't have time to go get a law degree or etc., you do now belong to our real estate company.
Yeah.
And so if any woman wants to take, it's a 60-hour course in Florida. I don't know what it is in Texas, maybe 120 hours.
I think it's a little more than that, but
that's something they could do from their home,
100%.
an online course, test out, come join. your organization, get the infrastructure, more training, be around more like-minded women that want to empower women, and boom, you could become a realtor.
And that's advice I've been giving women for literally my entire career, long before I sat for the test myself. Like, I have told women who have been in that situation for years, because there's such a low barrier to entry. Now, being a real estate agent is not an easy job.
It isn't, but you can handhold and learn from mentors. Everyone that comes into our organization has to be mentored on your first 3 deals.
Yes.
So after that point, you're up and running, but you still have the support of our organization.
And that's what I found attractive about EXP and about your specific organization, was the mentorship that was available and all the resources that were available that, you know, that allow people, that allow women and new agents, you know, to really dig in and get educated and get their feet wet. But before I did all of that, like, I used to tell women who came to me and said, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I've never had a job. I don't know how am I going to make money? How am I going to pay rent? You know? And I would tell them, like, the quickest profession that you can get that is something you would want to do is to go get a real estate license. Like, you can go get the education, and now you can do it on your phone. Like, back then you had to go to actually in-person school.
I did it online.
And I did it on my phone. Like, while I'm watching TV, I did it on an app on my
because
phone.
You're,
and
exceptional.
You can do it so quickly and get it done and get on with it and get your test, and then go sign up under a mentor group that can help you. And if you're industrious and hardworking and friendly and outgoing, you can build you a business.
Big commissions right away. And then if you bring in other realtors that are successful and benefit, our company happens to bonus and commission you out on all the people that you bring in and all the people they bring in. So it's a really great model. The other thing I'm telling our agents to do right now, since at this particular moment our industry is a little set back just because of what's happening with the interest rates and whatnot, we're telling to get ahead of the curve and to make our agents even better. We're telling them, hey, also go do the 20-hour mortgage loan officer license. You don't have to actually do them, but if you have the license, then you can have dual license, which means now if you find somebody on the deal, you can refer it out, because I don't think you can do it on the same deal. I could be wrong about that. Or if you just know your past clients and say, hey, I sold you a house 2 years ago, the interest rates dropped down. Do you want to refinance? And now you have this whole roster of clients that might not want to, you can't sell them a house, but you can go now sell them a new mortgage and turn it over to the Cardone Mortgage Group. And then we are able to pay you a commission on that when you have a license.
20 hours of education.
20, that's it.
Their kids could be off with dad for the weekend, and you could have that 20 hours of education done in a weekend while the kids are off with their dad.
Check. And I heard the mortgage license is even easier than the real estate license.
Yeah.
Because of the time, obviously, but also easier in general.
I mean, that the real estate industry right now, it may be depressed, but once rates go down, it's gonna go back up.
Explode. And the realtors that stayed with it, and the mortgage loan officers, the MLOs that stayed in on it, they're going to explode. So we're building a huge infrastructure. We're setting that up, which leads me to my next question. And maybe we already answered it with what I just said, but what do you tell women how to pick themselves back up when they're in right after a divorce, and what a horrible hit that is to someone mentally, spiritually, and oftentimes physically?
Number one thing I tell them is the rearview mirror in the car is small for a reason. Like, you look back for a few minutes long enough to do an assessment of what part you played and learn from your mistakes. The front windshield of the car is big, so let's look forward and move forward and get a plan to go forward. And so that's the number one lesson. You can't wallow in the past. and let's just get a plan and keep moving forward.
Yeah. And get yourself around other women. That's why I put together this group that we're doing, because I really want to be the woman and the women behind the women.
100%. Get yourself
we've
some
been
girlfriends.
the woman behind the man, and there's nothing wrong with that. I am never leaving that post. I love my husband. I love my family.
Right.
But I also, in addition to that, want to be the woman behind other women.
Right. I mean, the men are important in our lives, but there is nothing that replaces our girlfriends.
Right.
That, we've got to have our girlfriends really at every stage of our lives.
Yes.
But in those moments when we are at our lowest,
Yes.
our girlfriends are the ones who can pick us up and carry us and give us those pep talks and can give us those reality checks and say, look, girl, you're wallowing again. Like,
Yeah,
fix your makeup.
says that,
Like,
you get resentful and angry,
Yeah,
but your girlfriend can be like, hell no, knock it off.
Right. Like your girlfriend can say, all right, it's been 3 days since we've had a shower. So we're going to shower and we're going to put on our makeup and we're going to put on our clothes and we're going to go out and get out of the house today and stop wallowing.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I wanted to highlight about you is that you don't have to do this, the part that I'm about to say, of how successful you are. You have a very successful practice. So you don't have to do this, but something that drew me to you and why I'm so happy to be partnered with you is because now you started your own podcast. Obviously, you're not going to monetize from it. And,
Right.
You don't even need that. But I love how much that you want to be able to offer, I don't know if it's advice. I mean, I don't know legally all of the ramifications, but just as a podcaster, that you're willing to bring your level of expertise for women and women empowerment really says a lot about you and being on the forefront there of helping women support women.
Yeah, thank you. I feel like I've gone from this place of success and, like Zig Ziglar said, moving to significance, and giving back to the world. And so for me, during COVID, I got a postdoctoral degree in women's leadership from Harvard Law School. And so you didn't even know that part. So I just decided that, it's not legal advice. My podcast is not about legal advice.
Right.
My podcast is about empowering women. And after the divorce, leave the divorce behind, the legal advice behind. This is about girlfriend advice. This is about how to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move on.
What's the name of your podcast?
Divorced to Dynamite. Yeah. Doesn't that say it all?
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I have, I do some solo episodes where it's just me telling you what I think, and sometimes I'm salty.
I know you're going to have some good advice on the J-Lo just announced her divorce on her 2-year anniversary today.
Yes, ma'am, without a prenup.
And you said, what was your one-liner that you told many outlets that have been reaching out to you for your input today?
Whenever they asked me what I thought about Jenny not having a prenup, I said, Jenny been around the block 4 times now. Jenny's a smart girl. Jenny knew what she was doing. Jenny protected herself one way or another in her marriage.
Jenny knows how to marry and Jenny knows how to divorce.
Yeah, Jenny been around the block. Jenny knows how to marry and Jenny knows how to divorce.
Okay. Well, on that note, I just want to thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to have you back because I feel like I could have a whole hour just deep diving into this conversation. I know it's equally fascinating for other women out there. More women are interested in taking responsibility on their finances for themselves, for their families. And over the next 25 years, women are going to inherit $9 trillion worth of wealth. So we really do have to start educating ourselves.
Right.
And like you said, it's just, we didn't have the luxury pre-1974. And now we didn't have the luxury pre-1988, I found, for owning businesses. So it is fairly new for us.
Right.
So it's not like we've been lazy. We don't trust in general. It's a generalization, but I think it's some very high statistic, like 81% of women's wealth is kept in cash, and which is depreciating in value. It's not an income producing asset. So that right there And it's another high percentage, like 68% of women. I could have these numbers and these figures wrong, but like 68% of women is what's sticking out, actually admit that they don't have confidence with money
Right.
or investing or financial literacy.
But you know what? We carry the world in our tummies and on our backs, and we're smart.
Literally.
And we will catch up.
We will catch up, and we owe it to ourselves and to our species to do so. So
Yeah.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being on the show today. You are so amazing. Congratulations on your award.
Thank you.
Best divorce lawyer in America.
Thank you.
And thank you for standing up for women empowerment. And it's going to be an honor and a pleasure to take charge in our partnership in real estate. So thank you. Woo-hoo!
About to grace us, whether extraordinary, 10x skill. 10x badass, yeah, I'm after what I want.